standing by my husband's grave. The chill in the air sank deep into my bones, contrasting sharply with the warmth I felt for him. I was utterly alone, surrounded by a family that had treated me as an outcast long before this day. The gathered vultures loomed like shadows behind me. Their hushed whispers were like daggers, each word laced with disdain. "Look at her. Who does she think she is?" A sharp voice sneered, slicing through the air. It was Margaret, my mother-in-law. Her expression was one of heavy superiority as she surveyed the gathered mourners. "He left everything to us. She'll get nothing." The bitterness in her tone was palpable, a stark reminder of the contempt she had always held for me. The line of her mouth formed a straight, disdainful line as she stated that with every inch of her being. Beside her, Thomas, my brother-in-law, shifted his weight, an arrogant smirk playing on his lips. "I'd hate to think she's expecting anything. She should count herself lucky to have a piece of this estate." Together they reveled in my misery, and Lila, the passive complicity of my sister-in-law, stood by in silent agreement, her eyes meeting mine with hollow sympathy. My name is Clara Bennett, and at 35 years old, I thought I knew my family-in-law. In fact, I'd devoted my life to them, sacrificing not only my dreams, but my very identity to maintain harmony amidst their cruel antics. I had worked tirelessly, supporting my husband's aspirations while I pinned mine beneath the weight of their demands. But standing there, all of it felt like a dream lost in a fog of betrayal. The neat rows of flowers around the grave gazed up at me like overzealous witnesses, as my heart ached with the realization that my loyalty had been repaid with scorn. Where I had offered love, their actions communicated condescension. Silent tears trickled down my cheeks as I fought to maintain my composure. My hands trembled as I clutched the flowers I had brought, their colors vibrant against the stark earth, a painful contrast to the murky waters of my grief. Can you believe she spent years playing the dutiful wife? Thomas contorted his mouth in mock sympathy, and now here she is looking for handouts. The chuckles from the gathered crowd further drowned me in humiliation. The grave stood as the stark boundary of my past and future, marking the final resting place of the light that had been my husband. As I looked at the headstone adorned with his name, I felt the full weight of resentment from his family, cold against my skin. Their disdain cast shadows on this solemn occasion, and bitterness crept into my heart, a dense, smothering fog. They thought they could bury the truth with him, but I was just getting started. The thought coiled around my mind, providing an unexpected flicker of warmth against the brutal cold of their poison. I felt a quiet resolve stir within me. Even in this sea of grief and humiliation, I could not allow them to dictate my life further. As I descended the steps away from the grave, I looked back at the family members who had orchestrated my isolation. A curious determination began to surface, igniting a small flame in the depths of my despair. With every step, I felt the weight of their derision, but I also felt the tiniest ember of defiance breathe within me. I would not remain unnoticed or underestimated any longer. Days blurred together after the funeral, each one dragging me further into a whirlwind of heartbreak and despair. My once vibrant home, now a distant memory, was traded for this small, dimly lit apartment that felt more like a cell than a sanctuary. The flickering light bulb overhead cast weak shadows that danced across the peeling walls, whispering secrets of my sorrow. It was a far cry from the place filled with laughter, love, and hope, a place I had devoted myself to as a wife, a partner, and a building block of our shared dreams. As I sank into the worn-out couch, I felt the frigid weight of isolation settle over me. I could almost hear the echoes of my husband's laughter bouncing off the walls, but they were swallowed by the vast emptiness left in his absence. My heart broke a little more each day as I grappled with memories that felt like both a blessing and a curse. There were times when the joyous recollections would trigger tidal waves of sorrow that consumed me, leaving me gasping for breath. Visions of our life together haunted me, not just the happy moments, but the ones spent navigating the oppressive dynamics of the Bennett family. I had sacrificed so much of myself over the years to support my husband's career, pinning my own ambitions beneath the heavy weight of their constant demands. The irony stung like a fresh wound. In my quest for harmony, I had unknowingly founded my own exile. I replayed each interaction, shrouded in resentful nostalgia, every dismissive remark from Margaret, and Thomas's constant critiques echoed in my mind like a relentless drumbeat. While I rummaged through the boxes stacked haphazardly in the corner, I stumbled upon our wedding album, its spine worn and edges frayed. The images within captured that one perfect day when everything felt possible, boundless, before life pressed its fingers into our dreams, folding them away into neat little creases of discontent. I traced my finger over my younger self's unwavering smile and my husband's gentle eyes, closed in that blissful moment. How could we have known then how much darkness awaited? A chill settled in my bones as I recalled the countless evenings where I had thought I belonged, only to be reminded time and time again that I was merely a stranger in a family bound by blood, but torn apart by hidden agendas. In their eyes, I was a burden, an unwelcome intruder into their tightly woven tapestry of entitlement. They had always overlooked the love my husband and I shared, replacing it with a disdain that simmered just below the surface, waiting for the right moment to erupt. That night, as I wrapped myself tightly in a faded blanket, a cold sweat coated my skin. I had tried to push down the rage churning within me. I wanted to scream, to lash out at the universe that had turned against me, but those moments felt wasted. Instead, I allowed myself to weep, tears cascading down my cheeks like the relentless rain outside, blurring the lines between my past and this grim reality. The memories that once brought me joy now felt tainted, a cruel reminder of all I had lost. The days dragged into weeks, and the seasons began to shift, but nothing changed for me. I paced the small confines of my apartment, empty boxes crying out to be unpacked while my heart cried out for something I couldn't quite grasp. The scent of my husband's cologne still lingered in the corners, and the sight of his favorite chair occupied a painful space in my mind, a world I had longed to maintain. As I finally decided to clear out the remnants of our life, a twinge of resolve stitched itself into my heart. The remnants of my ambitions lay buried with my husband, but I could feel their whispers urging me to reclaim my life. "They underestimated you," a voice inside me echoed, and the more I repeated it, the more it cemented itself in my spirit. I needed to rediscover who I was outside of their shadow, outside of this grief that had consumed every part of me. One fateful afternoon, while sorting through my husband's things, I stumbled onto an unexpected discovery. There it was, a worn envelope buried behind a stack of dusty books on his desk. My pulse quickened as curiosity grabbed hold, pulling me closer. Without hesitation, I grasped it, peeling open the envelope with meticulous care. Inside lay a document that transformed my discontent into something unexpected: hope. As I unfolded the contents, I recognized my husband's handwriting sprawled across the page. It was an old will, bearing witness to the truth long hidden from me. My heart raced as I scanned the details, each line unraveling a web of deceit spun by his family. Hidden assets, properties I had never known about, and significant amounts of money were tucked away, designated solely for his wife, the very embodiment of devotion they sought to extinguish. My breath caught as that hidden inheritance unfolded before me, untouched and waiting to breathe life into my ideas and aspirations. It was a secret that could redefine the legacy of our lives together. The moment transformed my sadness into a storm of determination, a fire ignited in the depths of my being, roaring back to life. This was not only about reclaiming what was rightfully mine, it was about reclaiming my identity, the woman they had thought they could overshadow. They thought they could bury the truth with him, but I was just getting started. The thought rippled through me, infusing me with strength and purpose I hadn't felt since my husband had passed. I had been captured in the confines of their judgment, but now, with this new knowledge, I felt an exhilarating rush of power flood through my veins. I would confront them, not tomorrow, not next week, but soon. They all needed to know that Clara Bennett was still standing and ready to reclaim what had always belonged to her. During those darkest days, I found a framework that changed everything for me. The complete guide I followed is outlined in the first comment below. It might help if you're facing something similar. No longer would I be the grieving widow whose dreams were buried alongside her husband. I was armed with the knowledge of who I truly was, a woman ready to rise from the ashes of betrayal and reclaim her place in the world. The journey ahead would be fraught with challenges, but for the first time in a long time I felt alive. I would not go quietly into that dark night. I would rise and shine. The world was waiting, and I was finally ready to meet it on my terms. The days that followed my discovery felt like a whirlwind as I transitioned from grief to a simmering resolve. I meticulously planned my next moves, understanding that knowledge was the greatest weapon in my arsenal. The envelope containing my husband's hidden will was tucked away securely, becoming a symbol of the power I was beginning to reclaim. I transformed my small apartment into a strategy room, the walls splashed with thoughts penned on sticky notes that captured my emotions, ideas, and detailed plans for navigating the minefield that was the Bennett family. I spent long hours researching and plotting, rather than wallowing in sorrow. I found myself enveloped in books concerning legal matters, bereavement rights, and family dynamics, each word filling me with a newfound strength. I gathered papers, printed evidence of my husband's investments that his family had likely forgotten or chosen to ignore, readying myself for an inevitable confrontation. Every time I opened that envelope, the sense of empowerment bloomed within me, nudging me closer to the determined woman I aspired to be. The idea of facing my husband's family, of stepping into the lion's den, was daunting, but it held an electric thrill that I hadn't felt in years. I had never considered myself a confrontational person. I was a peacemaker, a supporter, someone who blended into the background. But now I needed to step out of the shadows, unearthing truths that had long been buried. I would not allow their disdain to dictate my future any longer. After careful consideration, I planned a visit to the Bennett estate. I practiced in front of my bathroom mirror, rehearsing the script I had crafted, a balance of sorrow and strength designed to leave them off guard. I wanted to project confidence, to remind them that I was still Clara Bennett, a name that carried weight and had significance irrespective of their sneers. On the appointed day, I donned an outfit that made me feel strong, structured, yet elegant. I glanced in the mirror one last time, feeling a buzz of energy coursing through me. As I drove towards their sprawling estate, I took a deep breath, reminding myself that I was walking in with knowledge and purpose. Upon arrival, the estate loomed above me like a castle fortified against intruders. I parked my car and gathered my composure before moving toward the enormous front door, my heart pounding in rhythm with a combination of dread and excitement. Thomas answered the door, his expressions giving nothing away at first. "Clara," he greeted, a hint of surprise threading through his monotone. "To what do we owe the pleasure?" "I wanted to collect some of my things," I replied evenly, an innocuous smile plastered on my face. "I believe your mother has a few items of mine that I would like to retrieve." "Right. Well, come in then." He stepped aside, ushering me into the grand hallway filled with the echoes of my past. I caught sight of Margaret in the adjacent room. Her posture was stiff as she eyed me with a mixture of suspicion and disdain. The interactions felt charged, and I could almost hear the unspoken judgments she and Thomas passed back and forth. As I accompanied Thomas to gather my belongings, I couldn't help but notice the opulence surrounding me. Lavish decor that once mesmerized me now felt suffocating. Each item promised a life I had wanted, but had turned into a gilded cage ready to trap the less deserving. Once we reached the family room, I carefully navigated the conversation, steering it toward my late husband's finances. "I've been going through some legalities regarding the estate," I said casually, but my pulse raced as I spoke. "There are a couple of items of great importance I would like to clear up." "Oh? Like what?" Thomas inquired, his voice taut. "Well, for starters, I've noted that certain investments, which I've only recently learned of, exist. I'll need clarity on that." It was a strategically placed bait, testing their reaction as I attempted to gauge how much they knew. For a moment, Thomas faltered, glancing at Margaret for support. "Clara, you should realize that your lawyer will take care of the details in due time," he replied, trying to mask his discomfort. "Actually," I interjected, "I believe it's important for me to be directly informed, given my status as the sole beneficiary of his estate. My emphasis on sole beneficiary threw a hint of defiance into the air, lodging itself between us. "You should let it go, Clara. It's not worth the trouble." "You have everything you are entitled to," Margaret chimed in, her tone dripping with condescension, laced with the implication that I should show more gratitude. I could feel the tension thickening into something tangible, but I held my ground. "I'm merely interested in understanding fully what that encompasses," I replied, keeping my voice steady despite the anger bubbling inside. "Everything from the hidden properties to the investments. I'm determined to ensure that nothing slips through my fingers." "You're being unreasonable," Margaret snapped, her facade cracking. "Your husband would have wanted you to move on, not dwell in what was." A mixture of disbelief and anger coiled within me. They thought they could dismiss me so easily that I would fall silent. As their deception started to unravel, I could feel my resolve hardening. "I refuse to be dismissed," I said calmly but firmly. "There's a lot you don't know about the agreements he had regarding his estate, and I intend to uncover every written detail. You may think you've won this game, but I'm just getting started." The house pulsed with tension as our voices grew louder, drawing attention from whoever happened to be nearby. There was a frantic energy in the air, a reminder of how fragile their grasp on the situation truly was. As the words left my mouth, awareness washed over me. I had gone from the background to the forefront. They might have tried to bury me in their judgment before, but now I stood proudly, ready to forge my own path. I would weave through the web of their lies and emerge unscathed. During those darkest days, I found a framework that changed everything for me. The complete guide I followed is outlined in the first comment below. It might help if you're facing something similar. The confrontation had ignited a flame I hadn't realized had merely smoldered. I was ready for the fight ahead, fierce and equipped with the tools to unearth the hidden truth. I would reclaim what was rightfully mine and fight not just for my place but for every single shred of dignity they had stripped from me. The battle was only beginning, but this time, I was armed with knowledge, determination, and the fierce resolve of a woman reborn from the ashes of betrayal. The world was waiting for me, and I was ready to meet it, not only on my terms, but with a fierceness they had yet to encounter. The confrontation left the air thick with tension, and in the aftermath, I felt a pulse of power surging through me. I had breached the complacent facade the Bennetts wore and exposed the cracks in their carefully constructed dominance. They were not prepared for the storm I was stirring, and I was determined to amplify the winds into a hurricane of truth. As days morphed into weeks, I transformed the quiet resolve within me into a carefully orchestrated investigation. I knew I had to delve deeper into my husband's affairs while keeping my intentions concealed. Every night I buried myself in research, poring over financial documents and legal jargon, slowly piecing together the puzzle that surrounded his estate. I had discovered early on that the Bennett family often employed a smug ignorance about mutual affairs, depending more on their familial ties than actual knowledge. That was their weakness, and my key to success. I made discreet visits to banks and financial institutions that held my husband's investments, employing a blend of charm and calculated decisiveness to slip under the radar. Each encounter gleaned insight into what would become my arsenal against the intimidation I was facing. They held no idea the woman they once overlooked was now a relentless investigator bent on reclaiming what was hers. There was a particular bank, a stout building nestled in the heart of the city, where my husband had managed sizable accounts. As I sat in the austere waiting area, the scent of polished wood and antiquated leather surrounded me, lulls of low murmurs resonating in the air. I felt invisible, just another fading flower in a bustling city. But I would not shy away. I had an identity to resurrect. When my name was called, I entered a sterile office occupied by a middle-aged banker named Mr. Greenfield, known for his no-nonsense demeanor and efficiency. After a few preliminary formalities, I broached the subject, carefully posing as a concerned widow, merely wishing to understand the specifics of her late husband's accounts. The investments he managed. It feels like there are details I might be missing. I would like to ensure that all transactions made are in alignment with our mutual understanding, I replied, directing vulnerability into my tone. Are there properties tied to his name you could illuminate for me? He hesitated, searching my face for signs of deceit. I could feel the tension vibrating in the room. It was a delicate dance between my desperation for answers and ensuring I didn't spook him. He pulled out a thick file, skimming through the pages until he landed on a section labeled Assets. The tension in the air began to crackle and bubble as I inched closer to understanding what had been hidden. Your husband held several lucrative assets, both liquid and real estate, Mr. Greenfield confirmed, his pen scratching against paper as he cited properties I had never heard of. 2 beachfront condos, an investment property in the city center, and shares in a newly developed tech firm. Each revelation stung, secrets unveiled that his family had likely concealed out of self-interest. The knowledge sank in deeply, anchoring itself within me. I felt the dawning realization that it would only be a matter of time before I could sever their connection to my husband's legacy. After this meeting, I left the bank, my heart racing not just from the thrill of discovery, but from the rhythm of anticipation as I envisioned how the pieces fit together. My head was swirling with numbers, percentages, and dollar signs, but I remained focused on one clear objective: exposing the Bennett family's machinations. As I returned to my apartment, I meticulously cataloged the information I had gathered. Each detail was a brick in the wall I would eventually build to protect my husband's legacy and my own identity, which they thought they could erase. But as I continued to gather information, I also began to create a strategy of support. I reached out to others who had faced similar battles, finding solace in their experiences and guidance. Their stories of triumph were threads of inspiration wrapping around me, urging me on my crusade for justice. I became a frequent visitor at the local library, poring over documentation, learning about legal rights tied to bereavement and estate management. One night, as I walked back from the library, I spotted a quaint cafe that was bustling with activity. The warm glow of laughter and chatter wafted out, drawing me in like a moth to a flame. I stepped inside, feeling the pulse of life envelop me. With a steaming cup of coffee in hand, I sat down in the corner and let the ambiance wash over me, allowing my thoughts to drift to my husband and my darker memories. It was in that moment, surrounded by the noise of everyday life, that I truly understood the transformation I was undergoing. I wasn't merely grieving. I was rising from the ashes, fueled by my own tenacity and purpose. I stared down at the notebook in front of me, its pages filled with clandestine notes of plans, legal figures, emotional reflections, and sketches of the new life I intended to craft for myself. And then it dawned on me. It wasn't enough to merely investigate the lies. To overcome the Bennetts, I had to build coalitions, gathering allies who would support me. Networking with like-minded individuals, particularly those who sympathized with my plight, became imperative to my plan. I determined to reach out to a local legal aid organization specializing in estates and wills, knowing they could provide guidance and expertise as I prepared for a legal fight. During one such visit, I met Janet, a seasoned attorney with a compassionate spirit and fierce commitment to fighting for justice. Her encouragement was a balm to my spirit, forging a bond between us that would shape the path ahead. "You would be amazed at the lengths some families go to keep secrets buried," she shared, her voice a mixture of understanding and resolve. "It sounds like you have every right to seek your husband's legacy. Together, we could construct a solid plan to ensure the truth is revealed." During those darkest days, I found a framework that changed everything for me. The complete guide I followed is outlined in the first comment below. It might help if you're facing something similar. With Janet's guidance, I began to carve a road in the chaotic terrain of my circumstances. Together, we prepared for the inevitable confrontation with the Bennett family. My knowledge, mingled with the advice from legal experts, became the arsenal I would wield to reclaim my life. This fight would not merely be for money or assets. It was a battle about respect and reclaiming my identity, a narrative shift that would not go unnoticed. The storm was brewing within me, fueled by a quiet fury, ready to unleash its power against the lies woven by the very people who sought to bury me. I would rise not only as Clara Bennett once more, but as a force to be reckoned with, fearless and unyielding, the woman who could no longer be underestimated. The truth was coming, and I was prepared to face it head-on. as I delved deeper into the legalities surrounding my husband's estate. Janet and I spent countless hours strategizing our approach. Our partnership flourished in a way I hadn't anticipated, her passion for justice fueling my resolve, wrapping around me like a shield against what lay ahead. We outlined a meticulous plan that encompassed every detail of the investigation I had undertaken, from financial records to the meticulously hidden assets I now knew existed. "Your first step is ensuring that all documentation is in order," Janet advised one afternoon, her voice steady and reassuring. "We need a comprehensive legal argument based on the evidence you've gathered. If we can present a solid case, the Bennetts won't see you coming." Her words echoed in my mind as I canvassed the stacks of papers spread across my kitchen table, a chaotic representation of my fight. Every enclosed document and scribbled note had become a piece of the puzzle, exposing a picture that the Bennett family insisted would remain classified. To further fortify our plan, Janet facilitated a meeting between me and a private investigator, Derek, whose expertise lay in estate disputes and family law. His entry into our campaign added another layer of capability to our team. He approached his work with a hawkish intensity that set this process ablaze. "I'll scour every potential corner," he assured me, his granite-like demeanor contrasting sharply with my emotional state. "Nothing remains hidden when I'm on the case. Just give me time." Derek's flair for delving into the unseen details inspired confidence, and soon we began to unearthed layers of my husband's investments, mysterious accounts tied to dubious transactions, and a roadmap leading directly to properties that straddled the borderline of legality. I wanted justice, but as these secrets surfaced, I wondered how much I could bear to discover. "Your husband worked hard for these assets, Clara," Janet reassured me during our meetings as she sifted through the documents. "He intended for you to benefit from them. We're fighting for what's rightfully yours." With an arsenal of knowledge on my side, a growing determination blossomed within me, eclipsing the fear that lingered in my previous life. I meticulously sorted through each document, forming a clearer understanding of the Bennett's machinations, while Derek collected evidence that would serve as the foundation of our case. The day my eyes fell upon the management contract for one of the major properties, a luxury condo in the heart of the city, was a game-changer. The terms were explicit, revealing a structure for negotiations, indicating how much the family had likely profited while actively concealing its existence. I felt my resolve swell as I absorbed this information like a sponge. This was it, the stepping stone I needed to launch my counterattack and bring the truth to light. "If the Bennetts think they can keep this from you, they're sorely mistaken," Derek remarked when I brought the contract to his office. "You can leverage this. They continue to profit while you're out in the cold." My heart raced at the thought. The idea of pursuing legal action no longer felt like a heavy burden. Instead, it transformed into my ticket to reclaiming everything I deserved, and more importantly, to reshaping my narrative from victim to victor. As we prepared for our legal appeal against the Bennetts, a feeling of empowerment coursed through me. I felt as if I were shedding the shadow of being merely a widow, emerging as Clara Bennett, a woman with resilience and fire. A woman who would go to any lengths to uncover the truth that had been veiled in secrecy. In an emotionally charged final meeting with Janet, we discussed our impending actions. "We'll file the formal request for an inventory of your husband's assets," she outlined, her eyes glinting with determination. "You'll present the facts we have, and from there, we'll push for transparency. The family will have to produce records, or face legal consequences." "Let's make sure they see the gravity of this," I replied, feeling emboldened by the words we were drafting together. "This isn't just about possessions. It's about legacy." "Yes," Janet's smile warmed the room. "And they think you're an easy target. We need to surprise them, turn the tables. That's when the truth will have the loudest voice." I returned home that evening, the weight of our plans resting squarely on my shoulders. In the heart of the darkness overrunning my life, a light shone, and it began with the certainty that we were standing on the precipice of something monumental. Derek and I met regularly for updates, each session delving into the minutiae of my husband's financial world while shedding layers of my fear. The world outside my window churned with evening life, but within me, There existed a cacophony of newfound hope and fierce determination reverberating through every fiber of my being. The morning we filed the request for an inventory felt like a bolt of thunder echoing in a turbulent sky. I was armed with knowledge, backed by professional support, and utterly resolute in taking my fate into my own hands. There was a strange satisfaction in penning my name on that official document, a transformation of my identity from passive to engaged. The walls I had built around my heart slowly began crumbling as I took ownership of my own circumstance. I envisioned every obstacle I would face and the points of opposition the Bennetts would raise. I felt a fire igniting within, a final affirmation that I would rise. In that moment, I flashed back to the conversation that had ignited my spirit, the desire for respect, justice, and to transform the narrative of my life. I couldn't settle for their version of the story. I needed to wrest it back from their hands. During those darkest days, I found a framework that changed everything for me. The complete guide I followed is outlined in the first comment below. It might help if you're facing something similar. As I reflected on the road ahead, I could feel my determination solidifying into iron. Winning would not just be about financial security. It was the future I deserved, a continuity of my love, and a tribute to my husband's legacy. With every moment that passed, I felt closer to the truth. The justice I sought was not only possible, it was destined. The fight was about to begin, and I was prepared to anchor into the storm, ready to face whatever backlash came my way, knowing I would not back down. My journey toward reclaiming my identity was only just beginning, and it felt invigorating to stand at the precipice of my own power. The day had finally dawned. I awoke to the familiar sounds of the city, but today promised a symphony of accountability. It was time to confront the Bennett family, to bring the fruit of my labor into the light. With every heartbeat, anticipation crackled in the air, a palpable tension that seemed to hum through me. Janet had advised that the initial meeting would be with the family lawyer, a man named Harold, who had represented the Bennetts for years. She believed it was best to establish a legal front before we brought the full weight of our findings to bear. I dressed carefully, donning a tailored suit that felt like armor, a protective layer against the anticipated onslaught of their disdain and dismissal. As I entered the law office, the polished marble floors gleamed beneath my feet. The scent of coffee wafted from a nearby carafe, a stark contrast to the chill coursing through my veins. I was ushered into a conference room adorned with dark wood and gold accents, opulent but suffocating. Harold sat behind a large leather desk, his demeanor relaxed but his eyes sharp, scanning me as if evaluating my resolve. "Miss Bennett," he greeted me with a thin smile, as though my presence was an inconvenience. "To what do I owe the pleasure?" "Thank you for meeting with me, Harold," I replied, determined to sound calm and collected. "I've gathered some information concerning my husband's estate that I believe warrants discussion." By the time I shared my findings about the hidden assets and highlighted discrepancies that had always seemed insignificant to his family, Harold's expression shifted from polite interest to calculating concern. His gaze darted to the legal documents in front of him, and I felt a surge of satisfaction knowing I had unsettled the carefully maintained facade of the Bennett legacy. "There must be some misunderstanding," he said, attempting to regain his composure. "Your husband had complete faith in his family's management of his affairs. I assure you, everything is above board." "Really?" I challenged, leaning forward slightly, my heart pounding with fervor. "Because everything I've uncovered points to the opposite. There are properties and investments his family has chosen to keep hidden from me. You can't seriously think I'll allow this to stand unchallenged?" He shifted, the heat of my conviction clearly affecting him. "This is an emotional time for you, I understand that. But I assure you the estate is mine," I interrupted, my voice steady as steel. "It was promised to me, and you know as well as I do that duty and loyalty have been trampled underfoot. You have your chance to put things right." In that room, the stakes intensified. I focused on the meticulous details I had armed myself with, poised to reveal how the Bennetts had sought to manipulate not only me, but the legacy of my husband. "Let's cut to the chase. I want a full inventory of all assets without delay, I stated forcefully. And I expect full transparency. If you refuse, we will pursue legal action to obtain a court order. For the first time, I could see cracks forming in Harold's bravado. Instead of the smug confidence I had felt from the Bennett family, I saw discomfort skirting through him as he glanced at the pile of paperwork before him. I'll discuss this with the family, he relented, undercut by the power of my resolve. With the meeting concluded, I stepped outside, a wave of exhilaration washing over me. My heart raced, not from fear, but from liberation. I had stood tall and resolute in the face of cunning deception. As I walked away from the law office, my phone buzzed with a text from Janet. "Well done, you shattered their comfort zone." Her words filled me with joy and a belief I fervently held. This was my moment of truth. But the exhilaration was short-lived as I returned home to find a message waiting from an unknown number. My heart sank as I read, "Clara, you're making a mistake. We won't allow you to take what's rightfully ours." It felt eerie and threatening, a stark reminder that the Bennett family was not simply going to fade away quietly. That evening, I met with Janet to go over our next steps. "They're likely getting anxious," she cautioned, her face grave. "This is when things could get messy. Be prepared for pushback." "I anticipated this," I replied, my voice steady, defiance coursing through my words. "They can't beat me. I have the evidence. They only have manipulation and deceit." A few days later, the anticipated backlash arrived. I received an unexpected call from Margaret. Her tone eerily pleasant as she attempted to engage me in conversation. "Clara, dear, I think we should have a little chat. What do you say?" I paused, feeling the underlying threat crawl over me. "Is there a specific reason for this sudden interest?" "I think we need to clear up some misunderstandings," she purred, the false sweetness grating on my nerves. "Perhaps we can work this out without all the legalities." "Is that really what you want?" I shot back, drawing strength from my newfound resolve. "Because this isn't a negotiation, it's my life." "Be careful, Clara," she warned, venom seeping through her honeyed words. "You wouldn't want to escalate things further. Our family has ways of protecting what's ours." When I hung up, unease settled heavy in my chest. I couldn't shake the feeling that these veiled threats were merely the tip of the iceberg. The Bennetts were not going to lay down and take my claim with grace. They were preparing for war. But deep within me, I was determined to stand my ground. The calm facade I projected was merely the surface of the storm raging within. They may have reveled in their control until now, but I had glimpsed the sunlight beyond their shadow. The truth would burst forth, and I would be ready to shine. As the following days rolled into a blur of preparation and anxiety, I leaned into the unwavering strength that had sprouted within me, reminding myself that each small victory built toward the ultimate claim to my rightful legacy. During those darkest days, I found a framework that changed everything for me. The complete guide I followed is outlined in the first comment below. It might help if you're facing something similar. As the confrontation loomed closer, I could feel the tides turning in my favor. I was no longer the woman relegated to the shadows. I was Clara Bennett, determined, empowered, and resolute in my fight for truth. The path forward was fraught with uncertainty, but I welcomed the challenge, ready to reclaim not only my husband's legacy, but my own identity as well. The Bennetts had underestimated me for the last time, and their downfall was about to unravel. The day of the court hearing arrived, heavy with anticipation. As I entered the courthouse, the marble pillars loomed like guardians of justice. My heart raced. This was my moment to reclaim not just my husband's legacy, but my identity. Inside the courtroom, the Bennett family sat together, their expressions a mix of concern and arrogance. I spotted Margaret, her presence intimidating as she held her head high. Each step I took resonated with the conviction I had nurtured, reminding me I was no longer a victim. When the judge entered and called the proceedings to order, I felt a wave of power surging through me. As Janet presented our evidence, detailing the hidden assets and discrepancies I had unearthed, the Bennett's confidence began to crack. I watched their facade of composure falter as my truth unfolded. "Your Honor," Janet concluded, "Simon Bennett did not intend for Clara to be excluded from his estate." It was my turn to speak, and I rose with certainty. "I'm here not just to seek what was unlawfully withheld, but to honor my husband's wishes." My voice carried, resonating throughout the chamber. I was no longer the subdued widow. I was Clara Bennett, determined to reclaim my rightful place. As I articulated the pain and injustice I had endured, the gravity of my words enveloped the room. Not only was I fighting for financial stability, but I was also fighting for dignity, for the respect I deserved after years of being sidelined. I refused to allow the Bennetts to define the narrative of my life. The judge began deliberating, and the tension hung thick in the air. I could see the Bennetts whispering, their confidence crushed beneath the weight of my resolve. Each moment felt intoxicating, the adrenaline surging through me. After reviewing the evidence presented, the judge declared, her voice firm, "I order a full inventory of Simon Bennett's estate. Transparency will now transition to Clara Bennett." A rush of relief and triumph enveloped me. I turned to catch a glimpse of the Bennetts. Their shocked expressions were a victory in themselves. Their grip on control was slipping, and I had ignited a shift. As I left the courthouse, I felt lighter, as though invisible chains had been broken. Janet was beside me, excitement radiating from her. "Well done. You stood your ground," she exclaimed, her approval boosting my spirits. But our journey wasn't over. The aftermath of the hearing revealed unsettling messages, like warnings from an unseen force. One from Margaret was particularly chilling. "You've made a mistake, Clara. Our family protects its own." I knew then that the battle was far from won. Despite the threats lingering like storm clouds, I felt empowered. I delved deeper into managing the estate. Each asset I scrutinized a testament to my dedication. I also began engaging with the community, sharing my story and encouraging others who faced similar injustices. My commitment inspired others to step forward, and with each new ally, I felt more connected and empowered. I learned that vulnerability concedes strength, and as I reclaimed my identity, I felt connected to something greater. One evening, as I reflected on my journey, the sunset painted the sky in brilliant hues. This was my new life, and I reveled in the triumph of reclaiming my story. I realized the Bennetts had catalyzed my transformation from passive widow to empowered advocate. The world was now a canvas for my aspirations, filled with hope and possibility. I had shattered their expectations and emerged reborn, not just to claim what was mine, but to forge my own narrative, vibrant and powerful. I was Clara Bennett, not defined by loss, but by resilience and reclaimed legacy. The journey was only just beginning as I prepared to rise fully into my new place in the world. I had fought back against shadows, and now I stood ready to embrace the light. They thought they had left me with nothing. If this story is touching your heart, please consider sending a super chat to support the channel. Are you enjoying this journey with me? Show your support by sending super stickers. Did you feel that sense of justice? Show your appreciation by clicking the super thanks button. They thought they had left me with nothing.